Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Ray Dalio was talking about this very thing that we're talking about. He had an interview with Tucker Carlson, and the headline from Business Insider is elite investor Ray Dalio warns the U.S. may suffer a financial heart attack if the debt problem isn't tackled. Dalio compared himself to a doctor telling a patient about a plaque buildup. You're in high risk of this heart attack, essentially, and now what are you going to do about it? The mentor at Bridgewater's 3 co-chief investors said it was vital to take action, such as exercising more while the patient was still in good health. Don't wait for this to happen and then try to make it better, Dalio said. The federal government spent about $6.75 trillion last fiscal year, but only collected $4.92 trillion in revenue, meaning it ran a $1.8 trillion deficit, according to the Treasury's website. The national debt has more than tripled since 2000 to an estimated $36.2 trillion, the website showed. Dalio said that if the U.S. doesn't cut its fiscal deficit from north of 6% of GDP to 3% in the next 4 years or so, the supply of government bonds will outstrip demand and push up interest rates, causing treasury markets to spiral. The author of several books about financial and economic history said that kind of trauma in the backbone of the financial system affects all markets and money as a storehold of wealth as we know it. Despite Elon Musk's efforts at the Department of Government Efficiency, Dalio said not enough was being done to address the debt crisis. During a separate conversation at the Dubai event recorded for Tucker Carlson, there needs to be a game plan, Dalio said, agreeing with Carlson that the lack of one seems crazy. Ed, what would be your game plan?
Well, my game plan would be we need pain, we need austerity. We need to do what the Trump administration says they're going to do. If they don't do it and they continue to spend like drunken sailors, we're kicking the can down the road. But when you rip off, the game in town has been deficit growth. That's been what stimulated the economy. Long term, that's unsustainable. So when you remove that juice, you will have pain. And if they can restructure the economy successfully with deregulation, downsizing government, and maybe tax cuts, then then using the tariff cudgel to bring more jobs to the U.S., we could come out of this. But to ignore it now only delays the inevitable, which is what Dalio said, which is long bond yields spike up into a death spiral. Right now, the long bond yields are going down, which is telling you people are preparing for a recession. Right now, that could change if Trump policies shift in the next 2 months.
And Paul, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. So it was said earlier that the printed money doesn't get to us. Ed said it, and the numbers say it. Corporate profits, just say, look at 2010 as we kind of recovered from the '08 correction. In my opinion, we never have, because without the printed money, you'd be calling the last, 17 years a depression. But we'll just forgo that for the moment. Corporate profits since 2010 are up 350%. Commodity prices are up an average of 400%. Wages are up 80%. So all Harry Homeowner and Susan Homeowner need to understand is that for our part of the economy, as they do all these fiscal gymnastics and theories, I've said it before, there's not one person there's not 100 people at the Federal Reserve poring over the most magnificent boardroom table you've ever seen, reviewing some documents left by a supreme alien race that they just found in the pyramids in Egypt on how to turn your woefully bankrupt, financially broke nation around. No one is poring over a blueprint with $36 trillion in debt and a 3-penny dollar. No one is poring over that scenario because England went through it before, or the French did, or the Romans did, and then they turned it around and maintained reserve currency status forever because we have it. The British couldn't turn it around, lost 26 countries in the process. The French couldn't turn it around. The Dutch couldn't. The Spanish couldn't. The Portuguese couldn't. and the Romans couldn't, and they invented it, and I don't even know who the hell really was a competitor to Rome back then. 1 out of 5 people lived there under their rule, and everyone who was an inventor or a theorist or a thinker, a philosopher, came to Rome. They literally had the brain trust of the planet. Yeah, there were some warring tribes outside of Rome, but as far as if you wanted to be known for thinking outside of the box, you were in Rome, and they couldn't figure it out. And at the end of Roman times, folks, a gold Roman coin was 5% gold, and the rest of it was beryllium. They were throwing coinage. They were throwing fake money at their bills, just like your leadership has been doing ever since Nixon, but certainly since the turn of the century, when they decided that they were never going to tell you, the American individual, the truth. They were going to hide it from you because it just can't blow up on our watch. Our political system ends every 4 years for many people. They can resign whenever they want to. As long as it doesn't blow up while they're in power, their legacy is intact. So if you passed away today, your money was intact as you left the planet. But eventually there's a tomorrow where that likely isn't the case, because the only example of governmental and financial, bureaucratic, and Wall Street-oriented leadership is you get reserve currency country status because of the people, and you lose it because of the lying. And this is all just more lying, and no one has ever been here before and orchestrated a way out, ever.
So is there any chance that tariffs could soften the blow of this?
Well, we got some bad news on that front. We put out this U.S. economic report that we're selling to institutional investors. And I'll share with you one detail. Right now, the trade deficit is at a record. In an economic downturn, that trade deficit shrinks. So you can do tariffs and try to get rid of the Internal Revenue Service, but in the depth of an economic downturn, that opportunity just goes right away. It's every recession we've had a smaller trade deficit. This trade deficit shrinks. So it's not gonna happen immediately if that's the plan. It's going to take time. So they'll be surprised to see the trade deficit shrink, not because of the tariffs, but because of the economic downturn. Happens every time.
Okay.
Jimmy, could I ask Ed for theorizing on something?
Sure, go ahead.
Out of time, do you mind?
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, I'm cherishing the opportunity, Ed.
Sure.
So, in my opinion, just quickly on tariffs, the idea is to maybe bully people into making stuff here again, or certainly keeping BYD out of our market, as the Chinese were preparing to assemble those electric-made cars in China, in Mexico, and drive them across the border via NAFTA. What if our country, one of the biggest things it suffers from is we don't make anything anymore? So I won't go long at setting up the point I wanted to make with some background numbers, but what if Trump gave American corporations 3 years to not make a damn thing outside of this country and then bring it here? Because these aren't imports. China didn't negotiate for its power. It didn't negotiate for the technology. It made rice and fireworks until our Congress people and corporate profiteers gave them the gifts of everything that we have learned over the last 100 years. Their wealth went from $330 billion GDP in 1990 to 17, 18 trillion today, all because of our corporate profiteers, American-made companies having stuff made over there, and our Congress people letting it happen. So what if making stuff again, literally everything, and I know the hardship, and you could probably articulate that very well, would be terrible. I may not say horrific, but terrible. But it would be the thing that does throw down a bit of a gauntlet and says we're at least going to be a country that lives and dies by what it makes and consumes here in this country. China be damned. China would go back into the rice paddies because they wouldn't have our economy that causes them to have one in the first place. What if instead of tariffs, we just said American corporations have 3 years and that's it? Nothing comes in. If you're an American corporation, nothing comes into this country from outside the country anymore.
And on a theoretical basis, it sounds awesome, and I agree with it. The problem is the implementation, right?
I know it'd be rough.
Right. So right now Congress is pretty evenly divided. The red team has a slight majority this time. It's something that would be awesome if it could happen, but I just don't see that happening.
I mean,
it needs to be done. It needs to be done. But
okay.
Look. To your point, what people don't understand is once we started the NAFTA under Bill Clinton, we began the financialization of the U.S. economy on the back of the reserve currency. So that's why the financial sector, myself included, I was one of those people, BlackRock, that benefited from financialization of the economy. But when you step back and look at it, we have an economy that's got insurance professionals, stockbroking professionals, Wall Street professionals, private equity professionals. So that's harvesting the U.S. economy from a financial standpoint. Then you have the aging baby boomers. Healthcare has been one of the biggest growth sectors. So you're harvesting old and dying people. We have an economy based on banking and harvesting, and we don't have an economy for anything else at the moment. That's how I view it.
Wow. So it might shock you to know that out of 100 transactions in 1990 that went off inside of America, 82 of those transactions happened on something made here. And today, out of 100 transactions that go off in America, 11 happen on something made in America.
And there it is. And this is why we have this generational problem. That's why Trump won, because the real wage growth is -2%. It's the economy, stupid. And he's got 2 years to make something happen. He's only got 2. And if it gets away from him, we got problems.
Well,
I see it as the last piece of firm ground before the edge.
Yeah.
Last 2 years before the edge. That's how I look at it. And I'm not predicting things.
I mean,
that's just me.
If he does austerity and he allows a recession to happen, the Republicans will lose the House and the Senate. And so then he's a lame duck. And then they just go back to money printing. Well,
the key is he's going to jam his stuff right now so that it starts taking effect by, at least the summer of 2026. You want to rip the Band-Aid off as fast as you can. This is what happened to Ronald Reagan. He got elected. He had a recession in 81. Then and the end of 82 and 83, things started to take off. We had the booming 80s under Reagan. That's the hope. That's their plan. That's their model, and it has to happen quickly. And to be honest, when Dowd was announced, I was mildly optimistic. I'm surprised at the speed with which they got in there. They rebranded a government program, U.S. Digital Services, and got in there right away. I wasn't expecting this to happen quickly. I was expecting committees, policies, legislation, nonsense. So the good news is they're moving fast. They're going to break some stuff along the way, but you got to root for Trump until you don't want to root for him.
Okay, well, if they, as Steve Bannon says, they got to go across the Potomac and go to the Pentagon. So,
and Steve Bannon is the voice of reason. Jimmy, did you ever think years ago you would be agreeing with Steve Bannon on things?
No. No.
It is a strange mess.
It is a strange world, yes. Well, Ed Dowd, the author of Cause Unknown, The Epidemic of Sudden Death in 2021 and 2022, and Paul Stone at thepaulstone.substack.com. I appreciate you both coming on, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Jimmy.
The heck out of it.
Okay.
Awesome to meet you, Paul, and I've seen some of your YouTube videos, so thank you.
Wow. I'm glad I'm sitting down right now, or I might fall over. Thank you, Ed. It's an honor to be able to tangle with you a little on these issues, and I thank God and for Jimmy setting it up. Thank you very much.
Okay, you guys get a room, and I'll see you.
Ever been with a bald man, Ed?
All right.
Hey, you know what? I'm open-minded these days.
All right.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, we got to go. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.